Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Forsaken Joe. Grab a drink because what I'm about to tell you isn't just a story. It's the kind of nightmare you don't wake up from. It all started with a noise. Not a scream or a laugh, just that soft, familiar tone of her voice. I wasn't even supposed to be there that night. I'd gone out to clear my head after another fight we didn't finish. The kind of quiet argument where she just stares at her phone while I talk to the walls. The bar was alive with music and chatter, but I heard her like she was standing next to me. Tessa, my wife, my whole world. She was sitting just one table over, surrounded by her friends, glowing under the dim neon lights. Then she said it. "I'm free again." The world stopped. My hands went cold around my glass. I wasn't supposed to hear that, and she wasn't supposed to say it. The women around her erupted in cheers, and for a split second, I thought maybe I was dreaming. But then I heard the words that followed. "Tonight's just the beginning," one of her friends said. "She deserves to live again," another added. "Live again? Free again?" Every phrase sounded like nails being driven into my skull. I couldn't move, couldn't speak, just sat there like a stranger at my own funeral. I wanted to believe I misunderstood, but the way she smiled, that sly, carefree smile, told me this wasn't about freedom from stress or work. This was about me, about us. And then I saw him. A guy I'd never seen before, leaning close to her like they were sharing some secret I didn't deserve to know. He whispered something into her ear, and she laughed. Not the polite laugh she gives me, but the real one, the laugh she used to save for when we were alone and happy. My chest tightened. My drink tasted like ash. I told myself to leave, but I stayed. Because deep down, I already knew this wasn't a misunderstanding. It was the truth I'd been too scared to see. What happened next? I'm not even sure how to put it into words. But I'll try. Because what I heard next made me realize my marriage was nothing but a shadow, and I was about to be crushed under it. I didn't plan on becoming the guy who hides behind a menu, eavesdropping on his own wife like some second-rate spy. But that's exactly what I was doing. I moved my chair just enough to hear them better, my heart pounding so hard I was sure someone would notice. Every laugh, every whispered comment felt like a dagger to the gut. Tessa leaned closer to her friends, swirling her drink like she didn't have a care in the world. "I can't believe I waited this long," she said, her voice dripping with excitement. "It feels so good to know I'm not tied down anymore." My hand tightened around my glass until I thought it might shatter. Not tied down? We weren't even fighting, at least not in the way that would make someone talk like that. I thought we were just coasting. Sure, things had gotten quiet between us. We'd fallen into routines, barely talking over dinner, but I didn't think it was that bad. Apparently she did. One of her friends, a woman with dark hair and an attitude I never liked, clinked glasses with her. "You deserve this, Tess. He's too soft, always waiting around doing everything for you like some puppy. You need someone who actually excites you." I felt my throat close. Too soft? Is that how she saw me? As some pathetic man who bent over backward just to be ignored? I wanted to scream, but I stayed silent, frozen in my seat as their words sank into me like poison. Then the guy at the end of the table spoke up. His voice was low, smooth, and filled with a confidence I'll never have. "You don't have to explain yourself, Tessa. Tonight's about celebrating your freedom. We can talk about the rest later." The way she smiled at him made my stomach twist. It wasn't just friendly, it was intentional. Like he already knew her in ways I didn't anymore. She reached out, touching his arm lightly, and I swear I saw him grin like he'd already won. I didn't even realize my hands were shaking until my drink spilled slightly onto the table. My head was spinning. I wanted to walk over, to drag her away and demand answers, but part of me couldn't. Because what if the answers were worse than my suspicions? What if she'd already made up her mind, and I was just the last one to know? Then I heard her laugh again, louder this time, almost like she wanted me to hear it, and she said something that broke me completely. "By tomorrow, I'll have everything I need to finally move on." Move on from what? From me? From us? I sat there, staring at my half-empty glass, wondering if I should walk away or stay long enough to find out what moving on really meant. I didn't know then, but the choice I made in that moment would change everything. I told myself to leave. I told myself that walking out of that bar and pretending I hadn't heard anything would hurt less. But I couldn't. I sat there, staring at the condensation sliding down my glass like it held all the answers I didn't have the courage to ask for. Her laughter kept cutting through the music, sharp and cruel in ways it had never sounded before. Every time she leaned into that guy, the stranger who acted like he had every right to be there, my chest felt tighter. I waited. I don't even know how long. Long enough for them to go through rounds of drinks, for her friends to start shouting lyrics to songs I hated, for me to start feeling like a ghost hovering over my own life. Then, when the night began winding down, I saw them leaving. Not as a group, but in little pairs and trios, like the party was dissolving into private after-parties I wasn't invited to. Tessa left last, and she wasn't alone. The guy was with her. He wasn't holding her hand, not yet. But he didn't need to. The way she tilted her head toward him, smiling like he'd just told her something dangerous and exciting, was enough to turn my stomach. I tossed some cash on the table, I don't even remember how much, and followed them. Not close enough to be seen, but close enough to know where they were going. They weren't heading home. They weren't heading anywhere I recognized. They were walking toward the riverfront, where the lights are dim and the bars thin out. I felt like I was in some cheap thriller movie, heart pounding so loud I worried they'd hear me. My brain was screaming at me to stop, but my legs kept moving. I had to know. I couldn't go back to our apartment and sit there, wondering. I saw them stop under one of those flickering street lamps. She was laughing again, quieter this time. He said something I couldn't hear, and then it happened. She leaned in closer, her hand brushing his arm, and he didn't back away. He leaned in too, like they were seconds from kissing. I froze. My breath hitched so hard I had to cover my mouth. Every muscle in my body screamed to run over there, to drag her away, but I didn't. I just stood there, helpless, feeling smaller than I've ever felt in my life. Then, as if the universe wanted to twist the knife, she said it loud enough for me to catch just one sentence. Tomorrow, I'll tell him everything. I owe him that much. My knees almost gave out. Tell me what? Tell me she's done? That I've been a placeholder while she found someone new? I wanted to throw up right there on the sidewalk. I wanted to scream her name, but I did nothing. I stood in the shadows like the pathetic man her friend had called me earlier, letting the night swallow me whole. When they finally walked away, I didn't follow. I just stood there, shaking, until I realized I had no idea what to do next. Do I confront her? Do I wait and see what everything means? Or do I just pack my things and leave before I hear the truth out loud? One thing was certain. I wasn't sleeping that night. And as I sat in my car, gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white, I realized that what I'd seen was just the surface. If I wanted answers, I'd have to dig deeper. And I was about to do something I never thought I'd do. I sat in my car for what felt like an hour, the taste of cheap whiskey and betrayal still heavy in my mouth. Every thought that came to me was darker than the one before. I imagined walking back to our apartment and waiting for her to show up, pretending nothing had happened, just to see what kind of lies she'd feed me. I imagined driving somewhere far away, ditching my phone, and letting her find out the hard way that I'd vanished. But mostly, I imagined walking back under that streetlight and demanding to know who that guy was and why she looked at him like I'd never existed. Instead, I did something I never thought I'd do. I followed them. Not right away. I waited, gripping the steering wheel, watching them from the distance like a man who'd already lost too much to care about dignity. They didn't get into a cab, like normal people would. They started walking. Together. I saw her hand brush against his arm like it was natural, like she'd been doing it for months. That was enough to make me turn on the engine and crawl forward, staying just far enough to not be noticed. They didn't go home. I knew every route she could take back to our place, and this wasn't one of them. They stopped outside an old brick building, one of those boutique hotels that tries to look vintage but is really just overpriced and pretentious. My stomach dropped. I wanted to believe they were just grabbing a drink at the hotel bar. Maybe it was innocent. Maybe she'd laugh about it later and tell me I was paranoid. But I couldn't shake the image of her laughing under that flickering streetlight, leaning into him like I didn't matter. I parked across the street and watched them walk through the glass doors, her heels clicking like a countdown. I could have left right then. I could have gone home and spared myself the pain of knowing, but I didn't. Something in me, something ugly and raw, told me I needed proof, not just guesses or half-truths. Proof that I wasn't insane. I grabbed my phone and snapped a photo as they disappeared inside. My hands were trembling so badly that the picture came out blurry, but it didn't matter. I had enough to know that this wasn't a misunderstanding. For a while, I just sat there in my car, my mind running in circles. Do I walk in and cause a scene? Do I wait for her outside like a lunatic? Every option felt pathetic. I kept picturing her with him, laughing, leaning in close, maybe even touching him the way she used to touch me. I hated myself for even thinking about it, but the thought wouldn't leave me alone. Then, like some desperate fool, I decided to wait. If she came out alone, maybe I could convince myself nothing happened. But if she didn't, I wasn't sure I'd survive that answer. Minutes turned into an hour. My phone buzzed with a text from her around midnight. "Don't wait up. Having fun with the girls. Love you. Love you." The words felt like a joke, like she was spitting them in my face while standing in someone else's arms. I stayed there in that car until the lights of the hotel lobby dimmed. Every second felt like a war inside my chest. And then, just when I thought I couldn't take it anymore, I saw them, walking out together, her hair slightly messy, his hand brushing her back as he opened the door for her. That was the moment I realized this wasn't just suspicion. Something real and ugly was happening, and I was on the outside, watching my marriage crumble like it had never meant anything at all. I didn't sleep that night. I don't think I even blinked. I sat in the car long after she and that guy left the hotel, watching my reflection in the windshield, like I didn't recognize the man staring back at me. I wanted to scream, but the sound wouldn't come. I wanted to cry, but I was too numb to even manage that. By the time I finally drove home, the sun was coming up, and the city was waking up like nothing had happened, as if my entire world hadn't just been ripped apart. When I walked into our apartment, it felt different, like it wasn't mine anymore. Her shoes were by the door, her jacket hanging on the chair, all the normal signs of a life we shared. But I couldn't look at them without feeling sick. I went straight to the kitchen, sat at the table, and just waited. I didn't even know what I was waiting for. Maybe I wanted her to come home and tell me it was all in my head. Maybe I wanted her to lie to my face just so I could see how good she was at it. She showed up around 8 a.m., wearing the same dress from last night, but with that slightly disheveled look that told me everything I needed to know. She looked surprised to see me, like she didn't expect me to be sitting there with bloodshot eyes and a coffee I hadn't touched. "Elliot, you're up early," she said, her voice too casual, too fake. "Where were you?" I asked, my voice trembling in a way I hated. "With the girls, like I told you," she said, avoiding my eyes as she kicked off her shoes. I laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was so pathetic I couldn't help myself. "The girls? Is that what you're calling him now?" She froze just for a second, but I saw it, that flash of guilt before she put the mask back on. "What are you talking about?" I slammed my phone down on the table, the blurry photo of her and that guy at the hotel pulled up on the screen. "Don't do this, Tessa. Don't stand there and lie to me like I'm some idiot who can't see what's right in front of him." Her face went pale. She didn't even reach for the phone. Instead, she sat down across from me, her hands folded like she was preparing for some kind of confession. And then she said something that cut deeper than anything I'd ever heard. "Elliot, I was going to tell you. I was going to tell you everything." "Everything?" I asked, my voice breaking. "What the hell is everything, Tessa? That you've been seeing someone behind my back? That you've been planning to move on while I'm here paying the bills and waiting for you to come home?" She didn't answer right away. She just stared at me, her eyes glassy, and for a second I thought she might cry. But instead, she said, "I'm not in love with you anymore. I haven't been for a long time." Those words didn't just hurt, they destroyed me. It felt like someone had taken every memory, every moment we'd ever shared, and set it on fire. I wanted to shout at her, to demand why she didn't tell me sooner, but I couldn't. All I could do was sit there, my whole body shaking, while she looked at me like I was a stranger. "You're too good to me," she continued, her voice calm, in a way that made me want to tear the room apart. "You never say no. You're always there. I know most women would kill for that, but I feel like I'm suffocating. I needed to feel alive again." He makes me feel that way. I didn't even know what to say. Part of me wanted to beg her to stay, to remind her of the life we built together. But another part of me, the small, angry part that was finally waking up, just sat there thinking, why am I begging someone who clearly doesn't want me? I left. I grabbed my keys, walked out the door, and didn't even look back when she called my name. I didn't know where I was going. I just knew I couldn't stay there, not while she was still breathing the same air as me. What I didn't know then was that walking out that morning was only the beginning, because the next time I saw her, everything would explode in a way I never saw coming. I drove for hours that day, aimlessly circling the city, stopping at places I didn't even remember pulling into. Coffee shops, gas stations, parking lots. It was like my brain was short-circuiting, trying to process what Tessa had just thrown at me. I'm not in love with you anymore. Those words replayed over and over in my head like a broken record, each time cutting deeper. I wanted to be angry, I wanted to scream, but all I could feel was this heavy, suffocating emptiness. I was a man hollowed out from the inside, walking around in a body that no longer felt like it belonged to me. At some point, I found myself parked outside her friend Marcy's house, the one who'd been at the bar last night, the one who clinked glasses and called me a soft puppy. I knew it was pathetic, but I wanted answers. I wanted to know how long they'd been laughing about me behind my back, how long Tessa had been planning this freedom she was so excited about. I sat there watching the house, hoping maybe I'd see her, but instead I saw him, the guy from the hotel. He walked out of Marcy's front door like he owned the place, casual and confident, wearing the same leather jacket I remembered from last night. He wasn't just some random fling. He was comfortable, familiar. Like he'd been in this circle for longer than I realized. My stomach churned as I realized what that meant. This wasn't a one-time mistake. This was an affair, and I had been the last one to see it. I don't even know what possessed me, but I got out of the car. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it might burst, but I couldn't just sit there anymore. He spotted me the moment I crossed the street, his face twisting into something between annoyance and amusement. "Elliot, right?" he said, like we were old friends meeting for lunch. "Who the hell are you?" I asked, my voice trembling in a way that made me hate myself. "How long have you been with my wife?" He smirked, like I was some clueless joke of a man. "I don't think that's your business anymore. She's made her choice, man. You should just move on. Move on." Those words burned. My hands curled into fists, but I didn't swing. I wanted to. Oh God, I wanted to. Instead, I just stood there, feeling smaller than I ever had, as he walked past me like I didn't exist. But then he stopped, turned back, and said something that froze me in place. "She told me about you, you know? About how you just let life happen to you. About how you'll never fight for anything, not even her. And she's right. Look at you. You're just standing there, letting me take your life apart." I don't even remember getting back into the car. I just remember sitting there, shaking, staring at my reflection in the rearview mirror like I didn't know who I was anymore. He was right. I hadn't fought. I just sat there, letting her slip away while I begged for scraps of attention. And for the first time, I felt something shift inside me. It wasn't anger, not exactly. It was something darker. I spent the rest of the day thinking about that smirk, those words, and the way Tessa looked at him like he was the only man in the room. Something in me snapped that night. I wasn't going to sit back and wait for her to tell me everything. I was done being the soft, quiet husband who let everyone walk all over him. I was going to find out exactly who this guy was, how long this had been going on, and why the hell my marriage had turned into a joke while I wasn't paying attention. And I wasn't going to wait for Tessa to hand me the truth. I was going to take it. What I uncovered next didn't just break my heart. It made me realize I didn't even know the woman I'd married. I didn't just sit around anymore. That night, I opened my laptop like it was a weapon, determined to rip open every secret Tessa and that smug bastard were hiding from me. I didn't know his name yet, but I had his face burned into my mind. That lazy confidence, that smirk that told me he thought I was nothing. It didn't take long to find him. Marcy's social media was like a gold mine, and within 20 minutes of scrolling through tagged photos and mutual friends, I found him, Grant Wallace. Perfect. Even his name made me want to punch something. The deeper I dug, the worse it got. This guy wasn't some random stranger who showed up at the bar. He'd been circling our lives for months. I found photos of him at parties I wasn't invited to, dinners where Tessa claimed she was just with the girls, and even one where they were standing way too close together, smiling like a couple. Every time I saw her looking at him in those pictures, it felt like someone twisting a knife in my chest. But the real blow came when I found something I wasn't supposed to see. A comment thread on one of Marcy's posts from 3 months ago. Buried in the middle of the casual banter was a line from Tessa, joking about needing a partner in crime. Grant replied with a wink emoji, just an emoji. But I swear to God, I stared at it for 15 minutes, feeling my blood boil because I knew exactly what it meant. That was when it started. 3 months ago, maybe longer. She'd been lying to me for that long, smiling at me in our kitchen while sneaking around with him like I was too blind to notice. I thought about confronting her right then, but I knew I'd just get the same dead-eyed answers. It's not what you think, or you're overreacting. I couldn't handle that anymore. I needed something concrete, something she couldn't talk her way out of. So, I did something I never thought I'd do. I followed her again. The next evening, I parked outside her yoga studio, waiting like some pathetic detective in a cheap crime drama. I hated myself for it, but I stayed. And sure enough, just after 8 p.m., she came out. Not alone, but with him. Grant. My hands tightened around the steering wheel until it hurt. They didn't even try to hide it. She laughed at something he said, her hand brushing against his like they'd done this 100 times. I don't even remember following them, but I did. They didn't go to a bar or a restaurant. They went to his place, a sleek modern apartment building I'd never seen before. I sat across the street for an hour, staring at the lights in his windows, imagining every possible thing they were doing in there. My mind painted the worst images, and I hated myself for not storming up and pounding on his door. But I stayed, because some part of me wanted to see how far they'd go, to gather every shred of evidence so she couldn't lie to me anymore. Around midnight, they came out again. She looked tired but happy. He had that same damn smirk, and that's when I saw it. Her hand slipping into his as they walked to his car. That small, simple gesture broke me more than anything else. It wasn't just about cheating anymore. It was about the fact that she'd chosen him openly, without even caring who saw. When I got home that night, I couldn't stop shaking. I didn't sleep. I just sat there, replaying everything I'd seen, trying to figure out how the hell I became the man who had to spy on his own wife to find out the truth. And that's when I realized something even darker. If she could lie to me this easily, what else had she been hiding? The next day I started digging into her life the way I dug into Grant's, bank statements, emails, anything I could find. What I uncovered made my stomach twist. And it wasn't just about him. It was about money, about secrets she'd been keeping for months. I wasn't just dealing with betrayal anymore. I was dealing with a web of lies that went far deeper than I ever imagined. And I knew, without a doubt, that when I confronted her this time, it wasn't going to be about saving our marriage. It was going to be about burning down the lies she built around me. The morning I decided to end it all, not my life, but this endless cycle of suspicion and pain, I felt strangely calm. I wasn't trembling anymore. I wasn't angry in that wild, out-of-control way I'd been for days. I just knew. Knew that I wasn't going to live like this for another second. I called Tessa and told her we needed to talk. She didn't even hesitate, which told me everything. She showed up at the apartment like nothing was wrong, like she could just charm her way out of this. But this time, I wasn't the soft, quiet husband. I laid everything out in front of her, the photos, the conversations, the nights I'd spent following her. I expected her to deny it, to cry or scream, but she didn't. She just looked at me, her eyes heavy with something I couldn't quite read, and said, "You were never supposed to find out like this." I laughed. "Oh, I was supposed to find out later? After you moved your things out while I was at work? After you married him?" She didn't say anything, and for the first time, I felt free. It wasn't her words that broke me. It was realizing that I didn't want to fight for someone who wasn't fighting for me. I told her I was done, that I deserved better. She tried to talk, to explain herself, but I didn't care anymore. I felt like a weight had been lifted off my chest. A week later, I started focusing on myself, something I hadn't done in years. I joined a gym, started running again, and even took a spontaneous weekend trip with some friends I hadn't seen in forever. And you know what? It felt good. It felt like I was living my own life for the first time, instead of just existing in hers. As for Grant, he can have her. I don't wish them happiness, but I don't wish them misery either. I just don't care anymore. And that, for me, is the best ending I could have asked for. So, if you're watching this on Forsaken Joe, I want to ask you something. Have you ever had a moment in your life when you realized letting go was the best thing you could do? Share your stories in the comments. I want to hear your confessions, your turning points, your moments of freedom. And remember, life's too short to stay in places where you're not valued. Thanks for listening, and don't forget to subscribe to Forsaken Joe for more stories like this.